This is how I got back into reading books, even as a parent with no time. Literally, I have no time to do anything. I used to read. A lot of people I see online are talking about, oh man, how can I read more? How can I get back into reading? I used to love to read and now I don't. That's the first thing you have to figure out before you can get back into reading is why did you stop reading in the first place? Is it because you don't have time? Because you could actually kind of work with that one. But if you stopped reading because you don't like reading, that's a little harder to fix. If you get back into reading without really understanding why you're doing it, and ultimately you don't really like reading that much, but you're not acknowledging that, you're just gonna be spinning your wheels the whole time. I think for many of us, the problem is that our attention span has gotten shot. So as you get older and you have more responsibilities and as you spend more time on the technology, looking on your phone, your brain just doesn't have the same capabilities that it used to. So you must also acknowledge to yourself it's not going to be maybe as easy as it once was, especially if you've gone a while without reading much. That's the boat I was in. I hadn't read a book in, I don't know, years. So I started small. I didn't jump back into reading some huge epic. I've saved that for a few books later. What I literally did was went up and down the shelves at the library and just looked at random books on the shelf. Yes, I judged them not even by their cover, just by the spine sticking out on the shelf. And I picked up this little one, this little novella that I'd never heard of before called The Dry Heart by Natalia Ginzburg. But I just read the first page there in the library and I was like, okay, this seems like I can read this book. Because I think the first sentence is something like, I shot my husband between the eyes. And I was like, okay, that seems interesting. You gotta start small and enjoyable. You can't just start reading something because you think you should or because you've always been meaning to read it. You've gotta just let your heart be your guide and be like, okay, this book seems interesting. It's not something anyone else I know has read. It's not on the top 10 lists or whatever, but hey, I read the first page or so. I read the back of the cover. Seems decent. That's another thing that helped me a lot was getting multiple books. When you just feel like you've committed to one book, I think that can sink you. Because what if I had gotten that book and it wasn't very good? I would have stopped reading it, I would have forgotten about it, and then never read anything ever again the rest of my life. But after I read The Dry Heart, there was at least one or two times after that where I would get several books out of the library. Or another good thing is if your library has the ability to check out ebooks. I would borrow several ebooks. I would start reading one. If I'm a chapter in and I'm like, I'll start another book and see how that one does. I'll kind of compare. I'll let one win out. Or just rotate back and forth. Maybe read two books at the same time. I know this sounds crazy. Like if you have no time, it sounds crazy to rotate between two books, but it's not with the intent of finishing both books at the same time. The idea is that you just keep alternating, reading back and forth until you realize, okay, I'd rather just finish this one book. Because sometimes books just take a while to get cooking. I mentioned the ebook thing, and I've also mentioned several times having no time to read. And these things kind of go together. Let me get real. The only time I have to read is when I'm in bed. I can't just like have the lights on and read because my wife is there trying to sleep. So I have to have the e-reader, and what I have, I'm not the biggest fan of Amazon, but I just happen to have a Kindle here, and it has dark mode, and it has like the red screen like that's supposed to be good at night. So I can read in bed at night without it shining a bunch of light everywhere. And that's really the biggest key to me being able to get back into reading is being able to read at night right before I go to sleep. Even if it's only like 5-10 minutes, sometimes it's longer than that, but the point is just showing up to do a little bit every day. The other great thing about having the e-reader is that you can get free books, not only from the library, if your library does ebooks, but public domain works. You can go to like Project Gutenberg, or Standard eBooks is another good website that I think has them formatted a bit better than Gutenberg does. Now, once you've kind of gotten your feet wet with some shorter, easier books, I would also suggest going back to books you've read a while ago that you know you like. So like for me, the first big book that I got into was The Goldfinch, which I read like 10 years ago and really liked, and I liked it even more the second time around. It's amazing after 10 years what you forget. I have the paper copy because I wanted it in paper, but I read that on ebook too. And it takes a long time. Like this book, look how big this book is. It's like 4,000 pages. It took me, I don't know, 6-8 weeks to read, but I stuck with it because I enjoyed it. And the more you enjoy a book and you find yourself like thinking about it when you're not reading it, the more you end up reading, the more you end up finding the time to read. Because for me, the way my mind works, I can't just do like what some of these people say, like Stephen King is like, read when you're like waiting in line at the grocery store or whatever. It's like, are you insane? There's no chance I'm going to do that. My mind will not let me do something like read if I feel like I'm going to get interrupted at any moment. I have to know that I have a block of time that is significant enough that I can do some reading without being interrupted. And unfortunately, that's just when I'm going to bed. But that can be overridden by a really good story, and I'm like, I gotta know what happens next to Theo and Boris. Will they find the goldfinch? And yes, it took me a long time, but I encourage you to read slow. Don't get impatient. Like, I'm not a slow reader in the sense of it takes me 20 minutes to get through one page, but I'm slow in the sense that I only have so much energy I can give, especially when you're reading right before bed. I don't have that much time, so it takes me a long time to get through one book, and that's okay. Here's a thing to ask yourself. Do you really want to read books? That means, do you actually want to look at words and read them, or do you want to say, I have read books? And if you just want to have read books and you don't want to read books, that's kind of an issue, and it's probably why you don't read books. You have to enjoy the reading itself, the whole process of reading, even if it's just 5 minutes a day. Push yourself only a little bit. Getting back into books, you need to be able to drop a book. You need to be able to get like a chapter, 2 chapters, 50 pages, and then be like, it just isn't catching me, bye-bye. But at the same time, you do have to push yourself a little bit because you are out of shape in terms of reading, and it's just not going to give you the same dopamine hit, especially at the beginning of a book, that something like a movie or YouTube video or scrolling social media will. If you have a little resistance at first to a book, just give it a little more time, push yourself a little bit, see if something starts to catch, if that resistance starts to go away a little bit, and if it doesn't, look for another book. It's okay. Not every book is for everybody. Ultimately, follow your intuition. What do you want to read? Oh, I feel like I want to read this book I read a long time ago. Okay, read it again. Or I feel like I want to try out this other book I've been hearing people talk about, or this other author I've heard a lot about. You got to follow your gut. And that's also with like, I just feel like this book isn't the right one for me. Okay, leave it behind. It can also, the intuition bit can happen with you give up on a book and you just keep thinking about it. Maybe you should go back to it. That happened to me. I started reading Virginia Woolf, and I need to make a whole other video about Virginia Woolf. But I had started reading To the Lighthouse, and at the same time, I started to read Donna Tartt's other book, The Secret History. I was going back and forth between those two, and To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf is a very challenging book to read. I would read chapters, and then I would go to some like Spark Notes to read the summary, and I was like, how did you get that from what I just read? I even got like a third of the way into the book maybe, and I was like, oh, like this is just too much. I'm just going to read The Secret History because it's easier to read. But then I started reading Secret History more, and I just kept thinking about To the Lighthouse. It's just something about it just stuck in my brain, and I just kept thinking about the characters and the story. There isn't really much of a story. And I was like, okay, I got to follow my gut. I got to go back and read this book even though I gave up on it. And it turns out it's probably my favorite book. And part of your intuition is also don't read reviews. Now I know reviews can maybe help, but the thing is, it's just people's opinions. You don't really know until you read the book. Honestly, I think you would be a much better judge of a book just from the cover than from reading reviews. A review only matters if the person has the same taste and the same perspective as you do, and you just don't know. If you follow my advice, youngling, you will eventually just develop a reading habit, and you will just want to read every day, and it won't take any effort. And for me, I don't think it took very long. It took maybe a month of reading regularly, maybe 2 months before it was just like, okay, I finished that book. What's the next book I'm gonna get? But ultimately, just have fun. I've gone on too long already. Thanks for watching.